Hey guys, it's Richard, and earlier this week, on Monday actually in fact, which is quite rare for Jagex to release an update on a Monday, we saw the release of these new farming plants, which is an update that in my opinion has been needed for quite some time, as farming has been a bit of a dry skill in the high levels, with the spirit tree pretty much being the maxed out piece of content. So over the last couple of days, I basically got hold of all of these seeds, got myself some boosts for farming, and planted every single one of these new plants, and I've just found out the XP that they give, and other various information such as what you need to give farmers to look after the crops for you. So with this whole compiled list of all the seeds, obviously it's going to be quite a lot of information to digest, so if you're here just to look at one specific seed, or if you're here to find out the information about the new Super Saradomian brews and the other brews, then there'll be links in the description to the certain times in the video, so you can just click the time and it'll take you straight to that piece of information. So the lowest level out of all of these new plants is the prickly pear at level 76 farming. You grow it in the cactus patch, which previously was only actually used for just the basic cactus, which can only be found in Alcarid, and there is only one patch unfortunately. To pay the farmer to look after it perfectly for you, it requires 15 jangaberries, or yangaberries, however you're supposed to pronounce it. You can obviously use it noted, as you can with every other form of payment. And the XP it gives you 170 XP for planting it, which obviously isn't that much. The check health XP is 2,250, so not too bad as a little bit of extra farming XP. And finally you get a tiny little bit of extra of 50 XP for harvesting it, so that's 2,470 XP in total. In a perfect scenario, this will take just over 9 hours to plant, but obviously because of the way that the farming cycles work, it can take a lot longer. Personally, it took me about 12 hours, which is obviously quite a long time for one plant. The main selling point of this plant is that it grants you a nice amount of defense XP. Personally, I got just over 11k defense XP at level 95, which obviously is a reasonable amount, but when you take into account how long it took to grow, perhaps it isn't that great. Next up at level 77 is the Barberry Bush. Now this is planted in bush patches, so you can have more than one going at any one time to help with the XP. For a farmer to look after this perfectly for you, you need to pay them with 15 hammerstone hops. Just a little heads up at the moment though, because people are trying to do this update, they're not that easy to get hold of. So for XP gains, it's 175 for planting, 1600 for the checking of health, and 50 for the harvesting, so 1825 in total. In perfect conditions, the growth time is 2 hours and 40 minutes, so when you compare that to the cactus that we just had a minute ago, it's not too bad, but it's still quite lengthy as far as farming goes. The reason to plant the barberry bushes, besides the farming XP, is that it grants a small amount of agility XP. Compared to the defense XP that we got from the cactus bush earlier, this isn't that great at about 1000 XP for me at level 86, so for actual agility XP, not that great, but perhaps if you're willing to gain that extra XP, it'd be nice as a little addition to agility. Now we're going to move on to the very first of the hops patches. Now previously the highest level here was level 28, so quite a step up here at level 78 for the reed seed. For a farmer to look after it, you're going to need 15 Asgardian hops. Same problem as before, where you might have trouble buying it at the moment due to the lack of supply and quite a lot of people wanting it. XP gains, 180 XP for planting and 190 for each piece that you harvest. So obviously if you get lucky and you harvest 10 or even 20 pieces of product, then you get more XP. Now the products that it gives you swamp tar, and it also gives you swamp lizard, but then this new item has been introduced, which is a toad egg sac, which when opened will give you 15 toads that you would normally rip off the legs and use as herbal ingredients. So new item there, not tradable at all, and you have to have 15 free inventory spots to open it up. So finally onto the allotment slot. The first one that we have here at level 80 is the Snape Grass seed. So obviously from this you would gain Snape Grass, which you can use to make prayer potions. For a farmer to look after this, you're going to need 15 dwell berries, so one for each patch, both the north and the south, or however the orientation is. In terms of XP, 175 for planting, then 80 for each individual piece of Snape Grass granted, so if you're lucky, you get lots. So it can vary between getting perhaps even a K XP for a patch to anything as low as probably about 400. So we're going to head back to the cactus patch as we were before. At level 86 we have the potato cactus plant. So for the farmer to look after this, you're going to need 10 watermelons, which can add up in price because watermelons seem to be going up at the moment. The XP that you'll get from it, 205 for the planting, 2,700 for the checking of health, and then 93 XP for each additional potato cacti that you harvest. Now, this is my second recording and I kept on saying cactuses. So if you want to reclaim them, the plant doesn't actually disappear when you claim the potato cacti. So, for example, you can go back. I don't know how long it takes for the potato cacti to regenerate, but you can go back and then reclaim more potato cacti. So that could be a potential way of making money without having to buy additional seeds. At level 87 in the allotment patch, we have the Sunchoke seed, which doesn't actually grant any harvest whatsoever. For a farmer to look after this, you need to have 15 Unelian hops for each allotment patch. And once again, you need 3 seeds to plant it as it is allotment. XP gains, 208 XP for planting, then 95 XP for harvesting. But obviously the main appeal of the Sunchoke seed is that it gives you strength XP for when you're harvesting it. The link, I assume, is that it's quite hard to pull out of the ground, and then you eat it and it does actually give you some strength XP. From my experience, I got 1.3k on 2 attempts, and then I got 900 XP on another attempt. So it seems to change depending on what you're doing. So personally, I don't reckon it's that practical in terms of gaining strength XP, but if you're doing herb runs or something like that, then perhaps it'd be a nice addition if you're a lower level in strength, as it will add nicely on your level. But personally, I won't be doing it because the seeds cost too much for what it gives back in return. At level 88, we have the butterfly flower seed in the flower patch, the only one of the new flowers that go inside the flower patch. And then this one is quite a unique thing because it doesn't give a crop in the standard manner that you might think, but it actually gives you ruby harvests already in the jar, which is a summoning tertiary. So although this doesn't seem like that great in terms of monetary value, there is a chance of a Gothixian butterfly spawning. Now if you're around when they had that essence altar that was around, I believe it was around February time. Now these Gothixian butterflies, they'll give you XP in your lowest skill. Although the only problem I've noticed is that they seem incredibly rare, so if you're going for that small amount of XP, it's really not worth it because it's a very rare chance. So people that are planting these are only going to be going for the ruby harvests, and it'll give you between 1 and 3. One thing to note is that this is the only plant that you cannot protect against, so you can't pay a farmer to look after it for you. So now we're on to our final of the allotment plants, and this is the flytrap at level 93 farming, so really quite high level now. Now the flytrap works in exactly the same way that the Sunchoke did, in that you plant it in the allotment patch, takes about the same amount of time, and then at the end of it you'll be able to use it to grant you an XP in a certain skill. Now before I get on with that, if you want to know how to protect it with a farmer, it requires 15 cadaver berries. If you want to know where to get those from, they are the ones that you get at the south of Varrock, just south of the wall, around the area with the mine and the dark wizards. So, the use of the flytrap seed. When you try and attempt to steal from the flytrap, you'll grant thieving XP. The thieving XP is pretty minuscule, to be honest. I only got about 700 for each time I thieve from it. So if you're going around all of your runs, that's 8 total patches times 7. So in total, about 5.6k XP. So that's at level 85. So not too significant in my opinion because that'll take quite a long time. For all of them to grow, it's going to take you usually about just over an hour. So in all, I personally wouldn't say it's that worth it to gain the thieving XP, as with most of these other plants, to be honest. Up next we have what I think is probably the most exciting in this new update, and that is the grapevine. Before you're actually able to grow the grapes, you have to use 5 planks, and you need to have 60 construction, and use the 5 planks on the hops patch. This then builds the framework for the grapes, and then you can later on plant the seed. For the nearby farmer to look after the grapevine, you need to have 15 Crandorian hops, and then he'll look after the entire process for you. When you then later on to come back to harvest your grapes, you get a random selection of grapes that include Sourdough, Gothics and Zamorak grapes. It's a completely equal chance between them, and then once you've consumed all of the grapes, it will actually destroy the construction work that you've done around the grapevine previously, so you'll need more planks to grow more in future. Now we're finally on to how to make the new potions. So once you get these grapevines, you basically just add them to a jug of water with 93 cooking, then wait for a few seconds and then it will turn into wine, granting you actually a pretty reasonable amount of cooking XP. Once you've got these wines in your inventory, you literally just use them with the previous brew versions, so the sourdough brews and the other ones, and then it creates the new super sourdough brews and the others. This requires 93 herb lore, and I'll just really quickly go over what these new brews do. So with the sourdough brew, it now generates 800 health instead, and boosts defense by a little bit more, while also still draining the offensive stats. The Zamorak brew, as before, decreases defense and causes some damage while increasing offensive stats, but now it boosts the offensive stats to the same as a super version of the standard potions. The Gothics potion actually has quite a unique effect, and it reduces the amount of poison damage you're currently receiving by 20, and it also heals 500 per dose. So if you're in a fight where you're receiving a lot of poison and you don't really want to take an anti-poison, though I don't see why you wouldn't, then this could be considered useful, but personally I don't think it's going to have much market. Now the Super Sourdough brews though, if you take into account that you put it in a flask, then that's 800 times 6, so you get 4,800 health per one inventory slot. Now that is loads compared to anything else in game at the moment, and obviously you have the problem that it drains your stats, but if you're using an overload or a super restore, then to be honest this could be considered a really good endurance food to take. So personally I reckon this is going to be really useful, and I reckon they're going to be worth a hell of a lot of money. So now we're on to the one that I think a lot of people have been waiting for, and that is the Wishing Well bush. 96 farming, this is the highest piece of farming content that you can actually plant in the ground, and can be considered potentially quite a fun piece of content, but it's quite clearly designed as a money sink. Now you plant it in the same way that you would do a normal bush, but once it's fully grown, then you try and take out the plant, and it requests you to deposit a certain amount of coins. Now this is relative to your total level. My total level at 2248 required almost 500k coins to get put in, and then when you do that, a fruit lands in your inventory and the plant is destroyed. Now when you open this plant, it grants you a series of consumable items that are used in the game. Now this could range from anything that's seeds, ores, bars, or anything like that, and then it basically puts that in your inventory, and it's completely random what you get. It's between 25% and 300% of the value of the money that you put into the Wishing Well in the first place. So this could potentially be a lot of money, but from my experience I put in my 460k, and in return I got just shy of 400k. So from my one plant that I've planted, then I've so far lost money, and that's not even taking into account the cost of the seed itself, which currently is around 100k. So personally I think this is just designed as a money sink, but I guess we'll see over time whether or not this could be useful for money over time, and also whether or not the value of the items changes with the market. So it could be considered that this may eventually, if market prices increase, become a very, very good way of making money. And it's also pretty nice if that does turn out to be the way, as it's a high level piece of farming content. So I would love to see if this makes money, but in my personal opinion I can't see Jagex allowing it to bring too much wealth into the game. But it's clearly just a money sink by the fact that it makes you give coins. So I guess we'll see over time as it comes in. And so we're at the end of the video now. I've explained all of the seeds, so I hope it's been useful information. I know it's been quite a long video, but hopefully the information has been insightful, and you can now go on farming these new high level stuff with a bit more confidence about how good it's going to be to grow them. So thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.